why is PaperX playing a Phoenix Astra Chamber Yoru Fade comp? Like, why would you ever play this comp on Haven? And to explain that, we kind of need to go like all the way back and just talk about Haven as a general map. So, if you think back to like 2023 and really since like the game's inception, what has been the most popular comp on this map? And the answer is Breach, Jet, Killjoy or Cypher, Omen, and Sova, right? This was the meta forever on this map. And the reason that this was the meta forever on this map is because this comp does a few things really, really well. The first of which is that on Haven, there's a few like major problems that the defense has to solve, and that is that there's first of all there's three sites, so you have to spread your resources, your players pretty thin across the map to cover the whole map, and then also there's a few areas like Garage and A that make the map a lot more complex if you don't control them, right? So if what I mean by that is if you don't control a lobby as a defender, instead of having to deal with one lane, which is basically like right here, this choke point, you have to deal with two lanes, right? So you basically like double the amount of problems that you have if you don't control a lobby. And this might be like very basic stuff that everybody kind of knows. But I'm just gonna kind of like summarize it real quick so everybody kind of understands the map at a very basic level. Basically, what ends up happening is this comp, you know, usually is going to put some sort of Killjoy utility here. It might be like Alarm Bot here, turret like this. Killjoy will play like here. Omen might play like this, spot long, and then you have Reach playing here with a Sova and a Jet. Like this was like the most common setup for playing defense on Haven. And basically what's going to happen is because Breach Stun was so strong at controlling lobby, you just instantly Breach Stun. The Sova is going to dart, behind people as they scale out. The Jet's going to get on the line with an operator. And then you have a lobby control. You've simplified the A side of the map to just being one lane that the Jet is controlling by himself, or maybe the Sova is controlling by himself, and then you can deal with the other parts of the map and you don't really have any gaps to worry about. So that's why this comp was played um, for such a long time, is because it deals with like the main problems of the map really, really well. And so then the next stage to this is that over time and really kind of like in the last year, this Viper comp has kind of come into the meta. And there's another comp that happened, and we'll get to that in a second. But now the current meta in 2025 and going into 2026 is that this Viper comp is the way to play the map. And the reason that this Viper comp is the way to play the map is pretty easy to see as soon as we just do this, right? So if we put this comp against just a Viper, the Viper wall kind of invalidates three players, right? Because even if you stun, like you do your regular A lobby control, stun, Sova dart, Jet on the line, you don't actually have control of A lobby, because even if the Viper is just sitting here, all the Viper now has to do is just put up the wall and then walk to the other side of the wall, wherever, and then you have control of A lobby. And so just one piece of utility that you can use, like in any time you want in the round, completely counters the most powerful part of the defense's control of the map. Um, and it basically makes you waste, the recon and the stun and the Jet's time. If the Jet has an operator, you're just staring at a wall. You still have to have the Sova here to watch short because the Viper could have walked up behind the wall, etc. And so just the wall alone counters this comp. Um, and that's, one of the main reasons that this comp has really kind of fallen out of favor. People don't play this comp anymore, really, because it's really, 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 really bad against the Viper comp. Um, and so obviously the Viper comp now, there's a couple different iterations of the Viper comp, but it's like, Viper, Omen, Sova is still in there mostly. and then either a Neon or a Yoru, and then this last spot is just going to be the Killjoy. So this is like the main way that people are playing the map now. Um, so how do you counter that, right? If this comp is specifically going to counter this comp, surely there's got to be a way to counter this comp now, right? The main way that people have figured out to counter this Viper comp is you still need to get this lobby control, right? So the best way to counter the Viper wall is just to get through the Viper wall, right? Because if you can stop the other team, if you can stop the Viper team from getting through this choke point, and then you can get through the Viper wall and just post up on this angle, then you have control of a lobby anyway. And then you can still do the same thing where you have one person controlling A, and then you can rotate to the other side of the map. So getting through this wall and posting somebody on this angle is the best way that you can deal with this comp. Um, or you can fight through the Viper wall heavily and then basically like flank behind them if they go C or B. So you kind of have like two main ways that you can counter what the Viper is trying to do. Um, so this brings us to the Paper X comp because I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say probably about like 80 to 90% of teams are playing this Viper comp now. Like Gen G made this popular. Gen G made this comp popular, and now about like 80 or 90% of Pacific teams are playing this comp. So, PaperX has come up with a, you know, new approach to deal with this comp. And they want to prioritize getting through this wall. Um, but they also don't want to play Jet. So there's like a couple of problems that you have to solve. You want to get through this wall, but the best agents to hold this angle are our op agents, right? But Jet is pretty bad, right? Jet is not that good of an agent anymore, so you don't really want to play the Jet, but you still want to get on this angle. So Paper X has substituted the Jet's role on defense with a Chamber because the Chamber can do the same thing, right? Chamber is going to sit on this line with a teleport here and a trip here or here, something like that. And now the Chamber is just doing the Jet's job. Um, but Breach is also pretty shit against Viper, right? So instead of playing the Breach, what they're going to do, and also because teams have gotten better at understanding that like if you're playing the Viper comp, you know teams are going to try and get to this angle and then hold this line, right? So you actually have to support the agent that's getting to this line. And I also should just say that like this position can be played by a Yoru, it can be played by an Omen, it can be played by a Waylay, it can be played by any agent really. But if you put a Yoru here, you're kind of losing a lot of the value of the Yoru. And then Yoru is occasionally going to have to worry about his teleport, right? So let's say he has a teleport here, and this is Yoru. Eventually, the teleport's going to run out, and so he's going to have to either throw a new teleport or get off the line. Whereas a chamber can literally just sit here on the line the whole time. So Chamber's very good at holding this line, probably the best agent in the game at holding this line because you have an instantaneous escape. You're built to be like an angle holding agent that just posts up with an operator, and you have the best escape tool in the game to escape from a position like this. So PaperX has put Chamber in this position. Now, I don't entirely know why they're not playing the Sova. Because I do think Sova is probably better on this map than Fade overall still. But I guess in this particular comp, the Fade makes sense because what they are going to try and do is to help this chamber get to this line instead of doing like the default long control that doesn't have a ton of value because you're just staring at a Viper wall the whole time. They are going to just control from short. And so they're going to allow the Fade to basically escort the chamber through the wall using a Fade Prowler. So the Fade Prowler is going to help the chamber get on this line, and then the Fade is free to leave, or maybe stick around and play with the chamber a bit. But like basically the fade is like the escort of the chamber to set him up through the short angle, and then they have the line, and then they can do other stuff elsewhere on the map. So now, if the chamber is like the angle holding agent instead of the jet, you still need duelist power for attack and for proactivity on defense. And so they have the Yoru, right? And something has been playing a lot of Yoru. So the Yoru has the ability to, he can do this as well if they want to mix things up, um, or he can do other things. Another thing that the Viper comp is quite weak against is, and something that they want to do a lot, is they want to abuse middle and they want to plant middle. Um, but they don't have a lot of exec or clearing utility, right? All they have as far as info and clearing utility is a Sova, right? So just a drone and a dart, and the rest of the time they basically have to like face check and walk into space, which means that the Yoru is very effective at getting into weird spots like this, and getting into weird off angles, making it difficult for the team that has a very like low density of information tools to find out where this Yoru is, and then he can teleport to safety. So Yoru is super good at doing stuff like walking down middle, fighting into middle, kind of countering the number two priority of the Viper comp, which is like mid control and B plants. And so Yoru is very good at that. And Yoru is also very, very good at fighting A, right? Because anytime you've got like flashes to be able to fight through this wall, it's very strong. And this is where I want to actually quickly talk about um, the third comp that is sort of like forgotten about. Um, Devi is playing Chamber in this comp. Um, so there was a period of time back when we were still playing this comp a lot where another team innovated and created a different comp, and that was Fnatic. Fnatic was playing ISO, Yoru, Cypher, Sova, and Omen. Okay. And this is a double duelist comp, but it's not a double dive comp. This is a comp that has some kind of unique characteristics. So basically, with this comp, you had the Cypher anchoring on C. I'm going to just delete all these agents for a second. You had the Cypher anchoring on C a lot of the time. You had the ISO and the Yoru and the Sova, and sometimes even the Omen fighting towards A. Cypher would control all of C and Garage and B. And this comp would just fight aggressively. Oh my god, we're getting a little bit we're getting a little confusing with all this utility on here. So I'm going to get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. This comp was basically built to counter fight the breach comp, right? So when breach comps would try to get out A, they would stun like this, and then they would try to get out here and like scale up here and get A control through kind of like brute force. But Fnatic made this comp to basically counter that. And so what they would do is the Yoru can kind of get out aggressively. And if he gets stunned, and he can just teleport away. They're still going to do Sova utility to control this, but they also were threatening with the double damage and suppress. Actually, I guess it was just double damage at this time of the undercut plus a shock dart, because they knew that the breach comp was basically like hard scaling out this way. And so there's a very good chance that they could do a lot of chip damage, maybe even kills with this combo, and slow down the breach comp taking long control. And then they could fight long again with the Yoru. And if there was any sort of like short pressure, then the Omen could also paranoia and help fight here. So this comp was actually built to fight against the breach comp and win this A fight. And you'll notice that the Yoru teleports over here, So if the breach comp sees all of this and they're like, oh, okay, well, there's 4 agents there or 3 agents there. Let's just go to C site. Then you have this anchor character who's very good at hiding in the back of sight, with uh double cages, camera, some trips, whatever the trips were, stuff like this. And by the time the breach comp has like gotten over to C, they're still going to have to deal with the Yoru because Durka, when Fnatic first made it, it was Durka who was playing this. He would teleport here almost instantly if there was no hard fight at A, and then you'd have 2 over here. You'd still have the Omen who can kind of float from B to C or B to A, and so you're going to have 3 people at C very quickly. And then if there's nothing A, then the ISO just picks up the orb or the Sova picks up the orb. You get 2 very good ultimates over here just farming the orb all the time. And then if the breach comp reacts quickly, they're still running into 3 players. If they try to fight through this, they're fighting into heavy utility and players. And then if they have to spend time trying to feel out the map and look for contact in B and garage and stuff like that, that's not really what the breach comp wants to be doing. The breach comp wants to aggressively take control, put the defense on the back foot, and then sort of like either hit the site or reroute and like deposit people and make the round difficult for the defense to read. So the reason that I bring up this Fnatic comp is because I think that the PaperX comp is essentially just a new version of this comp, and here's why. So we still have the Yoru doing the same play pattern, right? The Yoru has a teleport over here. This is what something does: teleport over here, fight towards A. The ISO has now been replaced by a Phoenix, and the Phoenix is maybe going to be something like this. This is there's a few different setups that PaperX does, but let's say in this case we just have the chamber on C. Devi is going to have a trip for garage or B. We're going to have the chamber on C, playing something like this. He can be on some weird off angle, and then they have they have the fade, right? And then the last player is the Astra, so maybe it's the Astra over here. And basically you still have the same fight, right? Because you got Yoru plus an initiator plus a second duelist, and then instead of having the Omen here to fight, you just have Astra utility, right? So it's like you have 4 people at A. So this is literally the exact same theory as the Fnatic comp with just different agents, right? So Fade, Phoenix, Yoru, they fight A. They recon. If a team is trying to brute force A, they're fighting 4 different agent utilities here, right? Because the Astra is going to contribute. Sometimes they even literally bring the chamber. This is another thing that they did do, is that they'll bring the chamber and they'll have 3 players A long, and the chamber will be short, or they'll be like 2-2. You've got the double duelist fighting long, 4 players here. So you literally have 5 players fighting, including the Astra utility at A. And then if the team realizes like there's so many people here, they react to C. Boom, Yoru teleport, Astra is here. So Yoru Astra can now defend C together. They can instantly rotate off because they've got the chamber on the line, and you can very quickly get over to C and flood to defend C. So basically, this comp that PaperX is running is very, very similar to the Fnatic comp and how it functions. And then again, like let's say we are just in like the full Fnatic comp setup where we have an Astra for B and we've got double duelist over here. The they fight. The Yoru teleports. The Phoenix picks up an ult, or the Fade picks up an ult. Very similar play patterns to the ISO Yoru comp. Now, what makes this one particularly good against the Viper and the current meta is that you have a few different options for dealing with A, right? So you can either put the chamber through with the teleport, or you just have 4 flashes, 2 prowlers, and an eye to force your way through, right? And you have double stars. So let's say the Viper's trying to lurk up, right? The Viper is trying to lurk up and take a timing, or the maybe multiple people, maybe this whole team, Viper, Neon, Sova, Omen, they're all trying to lurk up behind this wall, right? And then all it takes is for the Yoru to just flash through. Boom, flashes through. Phoenix Fade, dump like a Seize and a Molly, fight through with their own flash. And now this brawl is really, really bad for the Viper team, right? So these agents are really, really good at fighting for a lobby control and fighting through the Viper wall for a lobby control. Um, and at the same time, they're also really good at basically um, dealing with a reaction as well, right? So they can fight for A lobby control, and then they can go reinforce C, and then the Astra can kind of float. A lot of times Forsaken plays in Garage, sometimes he plays B, sometimes he plays C with the chamber. Um, but his utility is always going to be here as well. So they can have like up to 4 or even 5 people fighting for A lobby to force the Viper team to not come behind the wall. And if you can stop the Viper team from abusing the wall, then the Viper comp really kind of falls apart. So this comp from Paper X is sort of like primed to beat the current meta of the map, which is this Gen G Viper comp.